Okay, so welcome everyone to an open house for step 2 of the Our Downtown project, a project to implement the Downtown Comprehensive Plan. Thanks for spending your time with us tonight. Before we get going, I want to express our gratitude and respect for the planning department, from the planning department. The planning department wishes to acknowledge the traditional homeland of the Dena'ina Athabascans and the contributions Alaska Native peoples make to our community and society today. We would especially acknowledge the traditional importance of the area considered for this downtown plan and for Ship Creek as the traditional first salmon ceremony site. So thank you, thank you. We have a lot of gratitude. Okay, I'm gonna pass it to you, Christine, to do some introductions.
All right, thank you, Holly. Did you want to go over the interview? Or, oh, I'm sorry. I've got my slides not in order, I guess. Hi, everybody. I'm Christine Bunnell. I'm the project manager for step 2 of Our Downtown. It's the comprehensive plan update to the 2007 plan. We do have our planning team, which is Michelle McNulty, Carol Wong, Christine Bunnell, myself, and Tom Davis. Carol, Tom, and I are all in the long range planning section of the municipal planning department. We, along with Theed Tobish, if you guys know him, are the big dreamers of the municipality. And so we're excited to be bringing this plan to the community, especially right now. And then we love the fact that Holly and Michelle from Huddle and Shanna from Agnew Beck is on board to help us with this plan. It's going to be exciting, it's going to be fun, and we appreciate that you took the time to be here tonight with us.
Okay, we're gonna do, there are 3 of you.
Carol's with us.
I know, hi Carol. Okay, so we do have some polling that we want to do later on, and actually, I'm actually thinking we're not going to do the polling right now because it doesn't actually record for the people who are watching this as a recording. So I think we're just going to ask you the questions. So we're going to skip over this slide. We'll have a discussion about it. So I'm going to pass it back to you.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right, that was quick.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so what is a 10-year targeted review of a comprehensive plan? Well, it is outlined in our municipal code. It's in chapter 21.03.070B.2, targeted plan review. We're supposed to conduct those at 10-year intervals in conjunction with either an area-wide rezoning in order to make the plan consistent with the current economic and demographic trends, any recent and proposed land use decisions, and adopted studies and plans. And we have produced a trends report, which is on our project website. And I would encourage you, number 1, to register at the project website, and then B, look at the trends report, because that goes into a lot more depth of what's happening in our situation right now, all the recent and proposed land use decisions. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight. And then adopted plans and studies that have occurred since 2007 when the downtown plan was adopted. So why are we saying step 2? That's because we're in the middle of a 3-step process. So step 1 was a reformat of the downtown zoning districts. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then step 3 will be an update of the downtown zoning districts, and that will occur after this plan has been adopted. So our proposed timeline is we're kicking off January right now. We're having community meetings as well as stakeholder and technical advisory committee meetings now in January. We'll have another community meeting in March. And then we'll be working to develop a public review draft plan between March and August. and then another community meeting in August, and then hopefully a public hearing draft plan in October, going to the Planning and Zoning Commission in November, and then early next year having the Assembly adopt our updated plan. So again, the 10-year targeted review looks at the demographics and economics. Agnew Beck has developed a pro forma for us, and then they've completed a residential housing study for downtown, which we're going to talk about a little bit. There's land use decisions related to our incentives that we've adopted in the downtown area. There's plans and studies that overlay and contribute to downtown. And then our chapter 8 is our actions implementation chapter in the plan. And we've done a review of that. And again, that's in the trends report in depth. And then again, I said I'll talk a little bit about step 1 and a little bit later. So I'm sorry, I've got stuff in front of me, so let me stop here just for a sec. So the map you see behind me, and we'll see it again, is a taxable value per acre map that we developed early on in this process. And then we've got some successes we'll talk about. And then we've developed 5 other maps for this process. There's a vision, the 2007 vision, and the overarching goals, and the strategy framework, and a proposed study area boundary that we're going to talk about tonight with this presentation. Thank you, Holly. So lots of success stories in downtown. I know we hear, there's parking problems, why don't we have new housing, things like that. But actually, over the last 13 years, a lot has occurred. Also on the project website is a little report from Smart Growth America called A Few Good Blocks. And in A Few Good Blocks, Smart Growth America made some recommendations for housing, for art, for walkability. And what we did after Smart Growth was here in 2015 is we went in and we concentrated on that area. And from that, we now have Elizabeth Place. And then the Block 96 flats are going to be happening. And then we're doing some phase 1 and phase 2 brownfield evaluations on Muni property and hoping to get those turned into housing sometime soon. The downtown edge has come on, Conchi Place, the museum renovation happened. There's work going on the 6th Avenue Transit Center. I'm not going to go through all of these. There's a lot here. So if you guys could take a look after the meeting tonight, this will be online here, and then you can share with everybody everything that's been done for the downtown plan that's happened since in the last 13 years. So if you want to move on. So in the chapter 8, in the implementation strategies, there were about 57 action items that were listed. We, in our analysis, we found that 14 are complete. So about 25% of that chapter is complete. 17, or about 29% of the action items receive little or no action. And then 27, or about 46%, receive some action or are ongoing projects. And so projects that have been completed is step 1, the downtown code reformat. Some recruitment, business recruitment, and the branding program has been done, and that's ongoing too. Park planning improvements, 9th Avenue was done. That's in the downtown plan. We did have some transit studies, and then we have new transit routes that are downtown. The railroad terminal was renovated, and we have the beautiful historic railroad terminal downtown in Ship Creek, and the Ship Creek Trail connection, the Denina Convention Center. Those are some of the big things that have been completed over the last 13 years. And then I think let's go ahead and move on. So a little bit about population and jobs in the downtown area. And again, this gets to population and demographics, and Shanna will go into it a little bit more with her slides. In the 2007 plan, they estimated there were 1,894 people that came from the 2002 census in the downtown area. And then that was projected to increase to a little over 4,600 residents by 2025. That was predicated on a lot of new housing units being built in downtown during that time frame. We do know that we didn't get as many housing units, and so the population is actually a little bit less now in downtown. We found it in the ACS census to be about 895, but Shanna will talk about their estimate about it. Also about the jobs, in 2007, they thought there were about 16,697 jobs in the downtown area, which was part of 99501. So that's a little bit bigger than just the downtown core. I talked to Bill Pop about this number the other day on the phone, and he goes, you know, that's really squiggly right now with everything that's happening with the pandemic. I'm okay. Bill said that he was okay if we could say there were around 21,000 jobs, but that again is in the 99501, not just expressly in the downtown area.
Okay, I'm just going to pause briefly here. I'm going to welcome the 5 of you who are on right now. I've promoted you all to be able to talk so that instead of having a lot of people just, you know, not knowing who each other are, we're going to have time for discussion as we move through the presentation tonight. So we'll have some time to do that. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Shanna. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Shanna Zespian with Agnew-Beck Consulting. So about a little over a year ago, we completed a study for the municipality that looked at the residential market in downtown Anchorage. And the reason we were focused on the residential was sort of not to the exclusion of any of the commercial uses, but really in thinking about how do we bring more housing to downtown, kind of looking around at other communities and knowing that their strategies to add more housing has really made a difference in sort of revitalizing downtowns and bringing, you know, more activity and ultimately more commercial experiences as well. So we really wanted to focus on kind of 3 or 4 big questions. You know, the first was how much housing and how many people really are there in the core of downtown? There's a few different data sources, so I'll kind of describe that here in a second. We also wanted to take a look at some other benchmark communities and think, how does our downtown compare? You know, we like to say a lot of the time in Alaska, we're different than other places, and we are, but we also can learn from other communities. And so we picked communities that had, to some extent, a winter climate, who are urban, but not like way too urban to be comparable to Anchorage. And then we added in Oklahoma City, where different policymakers had visited and learned more about that community as well. And then I want to share just one slide on the sort of financial feasibility limitations to building new housing, which is, you know, really the main reason we haven't been able to build at the level that we anticipated when we first did this plan in 2007, and then offer up, you know, some solutions, several of which have already been implemented. And just a note about geography, you know, I think part of the role of this meeting is to get feedback on the overall plan boundary, which has implications for future policy and guidance around planning issues. From a market perspective, we just chose Census Tract 11, and you know, it doesn't encompass the entire downtown plan area as it exists today. It doesn't encompass the potentially expanded area, but it does give us one whole census tract to take a look at, kind of at the core of downtown. So that's why we chose that area. Next slide. Okay, so this is a little bit about the different data sources that Christine was mentioning and I was just referring to. You know, really the census has the population in downtown Anchorage Tract 11 at somewhere in the upper 800s to lower 900s, depending on the year. But the Department of Labor, which gets their data from our PFD information, has it way down at 603. And so we kind of just split the difference and did an average and came up with about roughly 800 people. And it actually ties fairly nicely to the number of housing units, which we were able to kind of count up by looking at the assessor's data and the sort of different units that are throughout our downtown, some of which we all know about and others that are kind of sprinkled into smaller commercial buildings. So roughly 600 housing units, which ends up being about 1.5 people per household, which is pretty close to what the census reflects. And just for comparison, it's the reason that we're looking at the number of people and the number of housing is just kind of how much activity, how many people can be brought into downtown to sort of improve the vitality. And for our benchmark communities, on average, they have about 10 people per acre. And in Anchorage, we have just less than 3 people per acre. So, not a lot of population density in our downtown relative to some of the other communities. Next slide. Yeah, this is just a graphic that shows some of the key properties that we think of when we try to add up those 600 units. McKinley Towers outside of the Tract 11 boundary, which is that purple boundary. And we just did that because a lot of times people think of those 200 units, but that's not even actually being counted in those 600. So this just gives you an example of those properties. This slide gets at some information on when the housing was built. And so Anchorage is the far box to the right, and you can see really no housing built in 2014 or later. It doesn't include the new Cook Inlet housing projects. And then about 11% built since 2000, which is different than the benchmark communities like Oklahoma City, where 80% of their housing has been built over the last 20 years. Salt Lake City, where half of their downtown housing has been built over the last 20 years. And then Minneapolis and Boise, where about a third of their new housing has been built over the last 20 years. So definitely room for more units to come into downtown. The monthly housing costs sort of just identifies that 84% of households pay less than $1,500 a month in rent in downtown Anchorage. I would say it's pretty close to, really, Salt Lake City is the most similar to our patterns. We do have roughly 40% of our households paying less than $1,000 a month in rent, and then 46% paying between $1,000 and $1,500. And then very, very few in that 1,500 to 2,000, and a few households paying more than 2,000. So this is just important to understand kind of the economic trends of downtown and the fact that we have, sort of lower income households paying less rent. But also it's really important when we think about building new housing and, being able to compete against nearby properties. If you're, building housing and offering it at, say, $2,000 a month or higher, those projects have to compete with existing rents, so it makes it tricky. Next slide. This is a cool illustration of like the diversity we have in our downtown. Again, Anchorage is in the red box. The lowest percentage of individuals who identify as white at 57% compared to the other communities, and then lots of diversity in the other ethnic categories, 24% identifying as Alaska Native, the highest percent of that population compared to the other benchmark communities, considerably more diverse than Boise, and probably a little bit similar to Minneapolis, but really a neat example of our community and a helpful way of thinking about how outreach and how to integrate different groups into the planning process. Next slide. This is population by age group, and I think what's most notable here is that we have the smallest share of the 20 to 34-year-olds compared to most of the other communities. We are pretty close to Boise, But compared to Minneapolis, Salt Lake City, and Oklahoma City, we're really, we have a much lower share of that younger demographic that's entering the workforce, looking to live in an urban community. We're pretty close on the 65 plus. There's, and this again is the existing residents, not necessarily those that would be attracted to downtown with new projects. There's always a lot of discussion around what is the driving sort of market indicators. Is it the seniors or is it the younger population? And we think it's both. And sort of as housing gets built, it's important to consider both rental and owner occupied. A lot of times folks who are in their retirement years are sort of trading in their equity or selling their homes and looking for more of a condo style, whereas those in their 20s and early 30s are looking for a rental experience. Next slide. The only thing to highlight here with household income compared to other communities, we really have more of an even income distribution, probably closest to the Minneapolis trends. But we do have a sort of higher share of households under $25,000 income per year. Boise has the highest at around 50%. But overall, a nice mix of incomes in our downtown. Next slide. So vehicle ownership, I think, is really important to look at. So the dark magenta is households that have no vehicle, then it's 1 vehicle, 2, and 3. And in Anchorage, approximately 80% of households have at least 1 car, right? So some of the other communities have slightly less vehicle ownership, but not by much. And then most of the households without any vehicles are actually 1-person households. So as you're thinking, if you're a developer or a property owner and you want to do some housing downtown, it's, important to recognize that you're going to have households, maybe the single individuals that are interested in studio apartments that may be totally fine with a lower rent unit and not needing any parking because they're not going to have a car. But it's likely you'll still have plenty of people who need to put their 1 car in a parking spot. And even if you compare to a place like, say, Portland, that has even more urbanization, I think it's roughly 46% of folks in downtown Portland still have a car, right? So just the idea that, parking is important, but too much parking is just too much parking, right? So what's that happy balance is important. Next slide, Holly. Okay, this is just a summary of the pro forma that Christine mentioned. We took a look for a different project at sites across Anchorage, and these are sort of hypothetical projects. There's no architectural designs or proposals for development of these sites, but we wanted to take a look at sort of the feasibility of building housing in different locations. The downtown project is the one in the middle in orange. So, the example is like a half-acre property, building out 40 units, costing roughly $10 million in total development costs, all in, inclusive of land, which is about $250 a square foot, which is high. And we've seen numbers in Anchorage lower than that, but we've seen a lot of numbers higher than that. And so when you take that $10 million in cost to build that housing project, and you compare that to the value of the income that can be generated from it, which is roughly $350,000 a year, the value of that income stream ends up equaling about $4 million, right? So you end up with almost a $6 million gap in terms of what the project can generate in terms of value and what it costs to build it. So that bottom row is that $5.8 million, and it's in red, and it's kind of showing as a negative because it's a gap. And there's different ways of showing that, but that's one of the ways that developers might look at building new housing. And so when you have that kind of gap, you end up with very little housing, and which is why that census data shows us what it did. What's cool is that we have, put in place the 12-year property tax incentive, almost 2 years ago now. And, I would say for the most part, it gets you halfway through solving the problem and halfway through that gap. But additional solutions are usually required. Those can come about through property owners having lower costs, lower land prices, or other partnerships with the public sector. But it's nice to know that we've moved into the realm of having, some tax incentives to make these projects pencil. And then the last slide is kind of what I was just describing. What can we as a community do to influence project financial feasibility? And the pro forma I just shared with you is a project that doesn't really have any extra construction costs or engineering costs for seismic reasons or costs related to zoning or development code, and you still have sort of a upside down project. But again, if you can bring the tax incentive forward, if there's ways to partner on the cost of the land, the parking, that can help make a difference. From the private sector's perspective, it's helpful for folks to consider kind of integrating and creating mixed use projects. Something that can always work much better is a residential project combined with a hotel project. We used to think about more office and more commercial space, but that's not been the case for the last few years, even pre-COVID. We were seeing declines in sort of demand for office space, but really kind of thinking about what kind of uses can come together and make the project more viable. And then the last one is, I think, one that we have a lot of opportunity to collectively think through, like how do we bring more what we call patient capital to bear? Is there opportunities to kind of rethink how our state financing agencies provide financing tools to help cover gaps in the pro forma? And so there's, I think, opportunities right now to kind of look at that and think through how those resources can be better utilized. So that's all I have at this point. Thanks.
So we've talked about a lot of information up to this point, and I guess I want to open it up to the attendees right now. If you have questions of the information Shanna has presented, whether it's questions or comments or discussion, something you want to dig into a little deeper, perhaps, we'll stop here and I'll ask you if you want to participate a little bit. Anyone, you should all be able to talk. So you should be able to unmute yourselves now. Okay, I guess we'll let it marinate. Okay, moving on.
So thank you, Holly, and thanks, folks, for again hanging in there and listening to a little bit of this detail about the housing. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the trends report and the mapping that we've done, but I just wanted to mention one thing about downtowns, and I think we all know this, that a vibrant, successful downtown needs housing. And the housing that can come into downtown, and you'll find that this probably planning process focuses a little bit more on housing than maybe commercial or hotel development, is having folks living downtown helps supports the local restaurants, the local small businesses that are downtown, as well as the tourism does, and the folks that live in the office or work in the offices during the week and that kind of thing. So the 2007 plan made a recommendation about a lot of new hotel rooms too, in addition to the housing. And we did a little bit of an analysis on that, but we didn't bring it to this report tonight for you guys. But that information is available if you guys have questions about it. And I just wanted to say that. So we, this initial kickoff for the project, like I said, we published this trends report, which is available on our website. We developed 5 different maps. This map wasn't developed for the trends report. It was actually developed about a year ago for an outreach that we wanted to do for downtown. And The maps are available on the webpage. They're also in the trends report. And they're just intended to relay information about existing conditions, existing housing in downtown, which we've already seen. What is Census Tract 11? What are the current downtown zoning districts? So those are the zoning districts that were reformatted with step 1. The implementation of a Few Good Blocks project, which I mentioned a few minutes ago. And then we have a proposed study area boundary for this project that's a little bit different from the 2007 study area boundary. So this is map 1 here in the trends report, and it just shows the current municipal property tax assessment for the entire municipality of Anchorage. And you can see how this map visually amplifies the importance of downtown and how downtown and its tax contribution contributes to the betterment of the entire Anchorage area. And we just really thought this was important to show for anybody that wants to know more information about downtown and who pays taxes and that kind of thing. All right, so this is the same map. This is map number 2. This is the existing housing in Census Tract 11. And it has the few different housing types in there, and we didn't point out all the different units within the different complexes that are in downtown. But again, we just wanted to show a representative of what is downtown and what the evaluation was done on that residential market study that Shanna and her group completed. So map 3 is an exciting map because this includes the incentives that have been adopted for the downtown area and Fairview. So the light kind of blue that you see there is the chapter 12.60 housing incentive. And then the T-shaped one, kind of gray or black, there is the Fairview East Downtown deteriorated properties incentive. We've got that green that's in the background, that everything's kind of shaded green. That's the original Neighborhoods Historic Preservation Plan that was adopted for the 4 original neighborhoods, Government Hill, Downtown South Addition, and Fairview. That's got some tax incentives in there, federal tax incentives. We have the Fairview Neighborhood Plan is in there, the boundaries in there, and that has a few little incentives identified in there. And then we also have the federal opportunity zones that are shown on this map. And so we wanted to show all of these on this map as to show the incentives that people have for wanting to do either business or commercial development in the downtown area. Thanks, Holly. This is our existing zoning. These are our existing zoning districts in downtown. And so the B2A is the central core there. That's the yellow. The B2B is what we call the central business intermediate. That's the green. And then the outside blue there is the central business periphery. And then that purple is our what's zoned PLI right now. Some of that includes property that ACDA owns, where the Saturday Market is, and then right across the street from Saturday Market. And then some of that includes the railroad property that they have there on the hillside. And it looks like we just got a comment from Jim.
Yeah, let's keep going through the maps because we're about to get to the boundary discussion.
Okay, yeah.
So we're going to start talking, hold on, we'll start talking about the boundary in a second here, Jim.
Okay. So map number 5, like I mentioned, is the Few Good Blocks. And, please be sure and go take a look at that report from Smart Growth America. What we did is when Ethan first came into office, we met with him, planning staff met with him, and we said, what can we do? And he goes, I don't want to look out there and see that sea of parking lots, figure out what we can do. And we heard from Smart Growth America, they hadn't been to Anchorage in a long, long time, and said, we've got this toolkit that we want to come in and help you guys with. So they were here for like 3 days. We had a bunch of different meetings with them, and they made some recommendations. And what they said is concentrate some effort. And so we came back to the mayor and said, okay, we're identifying 9th through 5th and I through L. We're going to go look for partners and see what we can do about this area. We identified all the utilities that were in there and the property ownership. And then what you have now is a couple of our success stories, Elizabeth Place, and then the Block 96 flats are coming in there. The real estate department is working on doing a phase 1 and phase 2 brownfield assessment on those 3 lots there. And then the Department of Health and Social Services, there's been projects proposed there. So we'll see what happens in the future on that one. So here's and this is the proposed study area boundary. It's a little bit different than the 2007 plan. It goes a little bit more to the west, and then it goes more to the east, all the way over to Ingra. It goes up and includes some industrial property along Ship Creek, follows basically the same alignment that the 2007 plan did. In the Ship Creek area there, includes the boat launch. And this is what we're proposing as the study area boundary. So we would look at traffic that comes from within this boundary, from the industrial properties, from the port. We would look at housing, whatever other issues, zoning issues and things like that within this boundary. And this is what we're proposing. And we'd like some comments from all of you on.
Yeah, so I know that we have at least a couple of members of the East Downtown, the Third Avenue Radicals on the line. I guess we're interested for some discussion right now on your opinion about expanding the study area for this plan and what that might mean. And Jim, I saw you came off mute, so why don't you dive in first?
Okay, first of all, sorry for coming on late. Who else is on?
Okay, you guys can't see. So there's, we have it set up as a webinar thinking there were going to be a bunch of people to manage, but we have Tristan Walsh, who is a representative, works for Zach Fields. We have Tom Davis, a planning department person. We have Lindsay Hadjuk, she's with NeighborWorks. We have Jason, I'm going to not say your last name the right way, but Jason, I believe you're with 49th State, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, and then we have Dave Siren, Amanda Mo. And I think, Dave, are you representing East Downtown as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We have Amanda Moser with the Downtown Partnership, Jim Rankert, active East Downtown, and then we have Carol Wong, who is another planning department person.
Okay, very good. So yeah, I will dive in, and yeah, this new boundary looks better to me. I guess my only thing there is there has been an awful lot of work put in to try to figure out what to do with Beans, the whole Brother Francis and Beans campus, and the Ron Oliva property. And from what I'm seeing here, it leaves that out. And I don't know if you can make a jog into that or not. It just, you know, there was a whole huge planning effort down there when we had a meeting with Ethan last spring, I think. We asked what was going on with that down there, and nobody seemed to know. So that would be my only comment. Other than that, I like the new boundary. I think it's more comprehensive.
Okay. Any other input on the boundary?
This is Dave Siren. Just to further comment on that northeast corner there, you know, there's been a lot of talk about getting some of the trucking transportation moved out of the core of downtown, and there might be a need then to extend that a little further north to maybe look at some trucking routes down that way that might alleviate some of the trucking through the downtown area.
Thank you. Jason,
Oh, I agree that the Beans Cafe and Ron's property should definitely be included. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that, but that's been an issue for a lot of, people in that area in downtown for a long time, just because that's where a lot of the, the wandering comes from. So we need a long-term plan for that. So that should be included in this, in my opinion. I just had a question regarding the intermediate and core areas. What's the definition of how you guys define those? In the actual couple slides ago, you had said intermediate and core, and I was just interested to see how that was determined.
Can we let Tom answer that question?
Sure.
yeah, Tom can
Okay.
come off mute. Go ahead, Tom.
I'm sorry, Tom is with who?
Tom Davis is a senior planner
right. Okay,
with the department. Yeah.
yeah, no, Tom.
Hi, can everybody hear my mic?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. Just checking. Yeah, that's a good question, Jason. That's our existing zoning districts, and they date from the 1970s. And at the time, the typical planning concept for a downtown was to have your tallest buildings and most intense employment in your core, and just have it taper off in concentric rings from the core. And that's what you're seeing there in our zoning boundaries. And to my knowledge, they haven't changed much, if at all, in the past 30 to 40 years. So the intermediate is basically, it allows a bit taller buildings by right than in the B2C district, the intermediate being the B2B, and it doesn't quite allow as tall buildings as the B2A, the core. And in all three districts, you can get quite a lot of extra building height through bonus incentives in the zoning districts, in the zoning codes. So these zoning district boundaries are the zoning districts that work with the zoning code. And we did reformat the code in the past year or so. We did not touch these zoning district boundaries. And I hope that answers your question.
No,
Sounds
it
like you
does.
might have-
Thank you so much. I guess the reason I bring it up is if it hasn't been addressed in a very long time, my question is to the panel is basically, do they need to be readdressed? Obviously the dynamics of what downtown is and what the future is of downtown, whether there is going to be a waterfront in downtown, whether, the way the traffic is shifted from the planning and zoning aspect, does that need to be readdressed based on where people are moving? And the reason I bring that up is because for a long time, at least the community council that I sit on has been, okay, like everything money gets poured into 4th Avenue because I'm not sure why all the focus is there. If it's just, town square, if it's, the history of the Iditarod. But the question is, if the core shifts around, are there additional funds allocated to different projects based on that core? Or is it strictly just a definition that you guys are using for planning? So that's just why I brought it up. Thank you.
Good question. Do you have follow-up to that, Christine?
Yeah.
Or an
Yeah,
answer?
so you guys are bringing up some good points, and I just want to let you know that, remember, it's a 3-step process. So we've done step 1 where we reformatted the old downtown zoning district code. It was old code into the current code format. This planning process will inform step 3, which is where we will be most likely updating the code. And recommendations from this plan may say those zoning district boundaries could change. So, and I'm saying may, and I'm saying could, and I'm being really squishy there because I'm not making any kind of commitments on any of that. Because I don't want to scare Tom or my boss Carol. But if there are plan recommendations that say we think things should expand a little bit, contract a little bit, that kind of a thing, for you guys too, Jim, over on Third Avenue there, this plan is what you guys are going to use to kind of direct that next step 3 and the discussion that's going to happen on the zoning districts in step 3.
So Jason, I'm going to answer another part of your question, I think. And if Shanna or anybody else in the planning staff wants to chime in, that's good. But in my experience, capital funding decisions are not tied to zoning.
No.
And I think that's what you were asking, right?
Yeah, no, effectively, like outside of the way that it's classified, what are the benefits to being in each as a business owner or property owner? And does a reclassification have certain benefits that the business owners and residential owners need to be aware of, right? And if they
Right.
don't, then that's a non-issue. So I appreciate your answer.
Yeah, okay.
And kind of one quick follow-up with that, Holly. You guys your community councils every year, you get a chance to nominate capital projects to the Muni's budget. And it may have been in the past, Jason, and before Sylvia came on board, that the downtown community council was really focused on the 4th Avenue area. And so you're now, who knows how many years later, seeing a lot of investment that's happening on 4th Avenue. So that could be, kind of why that's been happening lately. I will tell you that the downtown Town Square Park master plan, that was actually identified in the 2007 downtown plan. And along with a lot of other roadway projects that have not been completed. So yeah, so you guys can use the community council process too if you've got priorities.
Okay, so Amanda, you have your hand up, but I'm going to go to a question in the Q&A first, which was Lindsay Hadjuk. And this is again the boundary discussion, Christine.
Okay.
Why doesn't the boundary, curious why the boundary doesn't go from 10th all the way west to the coast? So, and we had this question earlier as well today, like why doesn't it include Bootleggers Cove and the properties down toward the coast?
Well, I'm gonna chime in here, and then Tom may have something to say about this too. You can see the orange line there, or yellow, however it looks to you guys on the screen. That was the study area boundary. Again, this is a study area boundary. It's not the downtown plan boundary. In 2007, they used that yellow there. And for us here in 2021, we just kind of followed how the blocks go. So kind of just squaring it off a little bit and picking up that property that has a different zoning over on that west side.
But I guess I'll follow up. Is there a benefit or to excluding that residential area from the thinking? I guess that's what people are wondering, because
Tom, do you want to chime in on that, or Carol?
Well, I could take a shot at responding to that question. And why doesn't it extend all the way west to the coast north of 10th Avenue? It's a fair question. We have down in the southeast corner included some residential areas of Fairview, just 3 or 4 blocks there south of the Memorial Cemetery. I don't expect those to become rezoned or changed to a central business district, but we felt that those areas were certainly worth including in a study area because they interact with downtown. And I suppose there could be an argument for including Bootleggers Cove to the extent it interacts with downtown, the central business district. Bootleggers Cove is a residential neighborhood. It's a part of South Addition, actually, and we don't think of it as being part of the central business district, and we don't intend to propose it to be. But I don't have a strong feelings about whether it should be in or out of the study area. It certainly interacts with downtown, and I'm sure a lot of people who live there interact with downtown. So
Thanks, Tom, for going a little deeper into that. I appreciate it. Okay, I'm gonna go to Amanda next. Go ahead, Amanda.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up a little bit on the question that Jason asked about the Beans Cafe area. And I think this question is mostly maybe for the planning department. I agree with what Jason said, that it seems like that part of town might need some support. Does bringing it into this plan, is that the best way to address those concerns, or is there another path that it might be better to explore options for that part of town outside of this our downtown plan?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say when we were proposing this proposed study area boundary, we basically went along INGRA. I didn't look at what properties were on the east side of INGRA and who owned what there and anything like that. So I just want to make sure that you guys know that those Beans and Ron Oliva's property were not left out on purpose at all. It was just, we were just following INGRA. The homeless plan, I think has some, probably some goals that we might want to incorporate into this downtown plan as we update it. And whether that means that we move the study area boundary over to include those couple of properties or not, I feel that we need to definitely address some of the goals and actions that are in the homeless plan that could help out and be included in the downtown plan. So I don't know, Carol, did you have anything to add to that?
I don't think we can hear you, Carol.
What about now?
A little better, still not very loudly.
Crank it way up and see if that helps. How's
Yeah.
that?
We can't hear you.
What about?
Okay, I think we should move on unless you want, let us know if you get your mic issue figured out. Okay. Any other questions or discussion items on this point? We're gonna go into some discussion next, more discussion, but.
If I could just chime in on that, that area there, I almost feel like we need to extend it all the way to Carluck, but then also bring it down to, what is that, 6th Avenue. It gets, it gets wonky as we keep trying to be inclusive, but I think it's worth a little discussion, maybe not right now, but yeah, so we can bring in the Lucky Wishbone area and Carluck Manor and some of those other businesses in there.
So I guess I'll just wrap it up by saying that I think what I've been hearing, because we've had multiple meetings today and we're kind of asking the same questions. What I'm hearing is that I think stakeholders need a better understanding of the difference between like a study area and what that means and what the criteria is for this study area, but also like what are the long-term results and actions that would result in being included in a boundary, whether it has planning implications or not. So I think that when we move forward into the next few meetings of the project, we're going to need to be able to answer that a little bit clearer. So
Sounds good.
we're hearing that loudly. So thanks for that.
Mhm.
So some of the things, I don't know, we do this a lot. We forget that there's a lot that we need to improve about downtown, and I want to talk about that, but I want to get you guys brainstorming here a little bit. So don't be afraid to just chime in, because when we think about urban and long-term planning, we also have to build on the things that we like and the things that are actually working and the things that you like about downtown right now. So from all the diversity of viewpoints that we have on the call right now, if you could all articulate maybe like one thing that you think is working and that you like and we think we need to embrace as an opportunity and do more of. So why don't we start articulating those things? I think it's important to talk about that. So Jason, you came off mute. Why don't you go first?
Oh, geez. I like that we have tremendous opportunity and the fact that we have an amazing opportunity to go ahead and basically make Anchorage right now a world-class destination for tourism. I think the tourism aspect of Anchorage and Alaska in general is going to be nothing but going up and up and up. And I love the fact that we have so many hurdles that we have to overcome in downtown that we're able to actually build those into those plans for the next 20 years, because there's a lot of challenges. And I feel like the opportunity is really what I'm most excited about, because build it and they will come and people will come. And talking to people about basically what when we were over in Shanghai with Amanda over in China, we talked to some of those folks and they had visited Anchorage and they were like, the infrastructure that's here is not what a person that would be traveling to Alaska would expect, right? And that when they talk about our 4-star hotel versus what they have in their own place, now obviously a lot larger cities have a lot different attributes, but having the mountains and one of the best trail systems in the United States and being able to be reached from global destinations because of the proximity of where we're located is a tremendous opportunity. So that's what gets me most excited about this.
Cool. Thanks, Jason.
Mhm.
Jim, let's go to you next. What do you think? What are some things you like and opportunities you think we need to embrace moving forward?
Oh, I'm chuckling here because I've always loved downtown, and I think I'm probably one of the oldest people here. Well, no, I think Dave's got me by a couple of years. But yeah, I've loved downtown ever since I was a kid. I've seen it go up and down. In fact, I remember people saying back in, I don't know, the 70s that downtown was dying. But then Tony Knowles, when he was mayor, did a bunch of did the pedestrian, the improved Fourth Avenue, did a lot of landscaping. So there's been, it's waxed and waned over the years, but overall, it is much better than it was at one point. What I would say is continue to work on, I think let me back up there. We do more with street trees, and as part of the day job, I'm working on that. The trail connectivity, and then I love the history along Fourth Avenue too. I think that's an important part of it. Oh, and I think the mushing district idea is a great one too. So there's a lot I love about downtown. I like working downtown. I like eating lunch, going to concerts, all of it. So.
All right. Does anybody else have anything they want to share? Things they like?
Yeah, this is Dave Siren. I also love downtown. I love the fact that you can pick and choose a whole bunch of different restaurants to go to. They're close by. So that's an aspect of downtown that I love. I love flowers. It's usually really pretty in the summertime. So I love the flowers. We have a world-class fishery in downtown Anchorage. For summertime season, that's amazing. You could leave your hotel, go down and fish for salmon right out of the stream there, sport fishery. And then in the wintertime, we've got our mushing district that they're working on. That's a great winter, festival to be focusing in on. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity downtown. I really like downtown and hope that we can expand and grow it.
Okay, who else? Go ahead, Amanda.
Dave, I'm going to send you, Holly wrote an op-ed last year talking about walking around downtown and eating at all of her favorite restaurants. I'm going to email it to you because she loves that too. But I also love the walkability of downtown, and I like to recognize that downtown is Denina land, and I am excited to celebrate that more as we continue to talk about our downtown.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Now, I know I said it was important to focus on the positive, but I also want you to talk about the challenges, maybe things about downtown that are frustrating to you, or that you don't like, or you see as challenges. Because, you know, combining our opportunities with the things that aren't so great is where we really do the work to find the best thing for downtown. So who wants to dive in here? Who wants to talk about a challenge? Unless you're all glass half full, I guess. Okay, Jason.
Okay, I'll go
Go.
first.
Yep.
I'm really frustrated that, you know, we have some of the best trails in the US and we don't have any kind of urban, you know, passing through downtown bike path. You know what I mean? That's not really promoted or encouraged in downtown. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed. I also think that, you know, the history aspect of what Anchorage has and it kind of molding up from Ship Creek, I don't think the history of Anchorage or the downtown is really presented anywhere in downtown. And I think, you know, I presented opportunities to discuss that on Third Avenue, specifically like trying to make a historic Third Avenue as it leads into Ship Creek with the new development and talking about the history of Ship Creek, because I think that's an amazing story, is how people founded Anchorage and how really the people came to Alaska. So I think those are two items that obviously have been challenging for me. And then also, you know, we've been for a long time, some of the lighting upgrades around downtown, you know, I think are a little bit of an issue. We've talked about cigarette dispensers and cigarette receptacles being placed on the different corners. Some of the locations of crosswalks that needed to be moved. The sidewalk width, obviously, and, you know, I know one of the plans for planning and zoning to talk about is actually increasing the sidewalk widths. So what does that look like? You know what I mean? How do you do that without getting rid of parking spaces? So I'll shut up now, but those are just a few items I think that take to heart.
Yeah, good list. Go ahead, Amanda. You're up next.
Jason had a great list and I support all the items on his list. And to supplement it, downtown has so many great features, but there's no way to find them. And especially if you were a guest here, we need a comprehensive wayfinding. Our downtown needs more winter infrastructure, ways to connect and be together in the colder months, whether it's outdoor seating, and other Arctic cities have really cool ways, like sort of outdoor seating covered 3/4 of the way. A lot of what Jason mentioned, the infrastructure, I think the light poles, the electricity doesn't work, so we can't put holiday lights on them, sidewalk widths inconsistent. We need to have more opportunities to eat outdoors in the summer, especially. And then bike lanes. And then our downtown's so beige. How do we get more color and more vibrancy and sort of a downtown palette? So thank you for the opportunity.
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, well, I think you know where Dave and I, our prime area we'd like to see is the old hospital site revitalized and activated. But then the other one I'm going to mention is landscaping along 4th Avenue from, what is that? I think basically C Street, B Street, all the way to Ingra. That is the most desolate stretch of downtown. in terms of its landscaping by far. And it was actually Jacques Boutet who told me a few years ago, put in for trying to get on the landscape, a landscape plan for that area. And then let's see, Jason mentioned, Jason, I've got an old video that was done about 25 years ago called 4th Avenue, the street that was the whole town. I think you'd find that really interesting. And then Amanda, I have an idea for a winter recreation activity in downtown. And we'll have to get together and talk about that. So I'm going to keep it under my hat for now. I'm going to put that out as a teaser.
That's not fair.
Too bad.
Okay. Does anybody else want to share some challenges or frustrations?
Again,
Go ahead.
Dave again, I'll just mention more greenery, more landscaping, more trees, more flowers, more trash containers so it can be clean. I think those are simple things, relatively simple things that could just transform it visually and be a big positive.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to move us to the next question. And you've all started to do this already, which means you're action-oriented thinkers. And we don't need to do this in the chat box. We can just do this verbally. But pretend you're in charge. Pretend and pretend who you are. Like you could be the mayor, you could be the planning director. I don't know. You get to dream who you are. I guess maybe what would you do to improve downtown? And I know we've heard about trail connections and landscaping and how things look, but maybe challenge yourself to think about a larger or like a policy level, or maybe a land use level. Like if you can take yourself there, like what sorts of things would you do to try to implement the things that you know would make things better?
I'll go first.
Mhm.
So let's just pretend you had the power to go ahead and change some rules and regulations. But what's the biggest challenge that Anchorage faces, and specifically downtown, is that the economics don't work, right? Because we have such a small population in Anchorage, right? We have this seasonal swing of these large tourists that come in here. So the seasonal demand is significantly different than the winter year-round demand. So how do you get year-round investment and people to go ahead and build and invest in downtown if you can't, create this residential increase of people living there? And I think the slide presented earlier said, like in the last 10 years, I don't know if it's it, but very few people as a percentage have actually ended up moving to downtown. I think that's correct. If it's incorrect, correct me. But so my thought is that figuring out a way to go ahead and really focus on trying to drive traffic in downtown, and specifically from outside. Tourism is one way, trying to encourage like international investment into the Anchorage and downtown area, and specifically related to, the idea has been thrown out with the Nordstrom Garage. You open up gaming, open a seasonal casino, tax a casino, right? Open it up just for the tourists. There's a lot of creative ways I think that you could do that, connecting, parts of Anchorage Bowl area to, the Kenai Peninsula or, Point McKenzie. Some other ideas are obviously we're trying to work on developing, the Ship Creek area and creating a waterfront, creating a beautiful spa down there using, Alaskan sea salts and mud. These ideas will help draw people downtown. And I really think because of population that we are lacking here, we have to find creative ways to use the landscape around us and the nature that we have as being a launching point to Alaska to really draw people to Anchorage as being their base, and then they can explore the rest of Alaska. And, I think there's a lot of great people on this call in Anchorage that have ideas to that, but it needs to be taken into consideration. So thanks, that's all I got.
Cool. Somebody else want to be mayor for the day? What would you do?
Well, this is Jim, and I know that one of the stated goals of Visit Anchorage and the visitor industry is to get people to stay here one more night, stay in Anchorage, heads in beds one more night here. And what Jason was saying is that is basically Anchorage can be the base camp for your adventures, but there's some great adventures, your adventures throughout Alaska, but there's some great adventures right here within 30 minutes of downtown Anchorage that are totally not totally undeveloped, but they're underdeveloped, underused, and underappreciated. And that is Arctic Valley. That area needs a comprehensive plan that is with major stakeholders, the state of Alaska, DNR, Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, and the municipality, and Friends of Nike Site Summit and the Anchorage Ski Club. That is a diamond in the rough that could be doing so much more for this city and the state. And I'll leave it at that for the moment.
Mayor for a day and you don't focus on downtown. That's okay.
But that will help downtown because it goes back to the whole base camp.
I know, I'm just giving you a hard time, Jim.
I know you are.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Maybe Amanda, go ahead, Amanda. And then Tristan, if you want to chime in, I'll get to you next, but go ahead, Amanda.
I'm happy to let Tristan go before me. I'd love to hear.
Tristan, do you have something?
Yeah, one thing that actually is we've been working on talking to the Japanese consulate about encouraging the return of independent travelers, especially if with COVID, we know that, in the near future, it's going to be at least a couple years before cruise industry travelers really bounce back. And so it's kind of much more of a long-term thing. But one of the things that's been interesting is that, the economics of engaging like direct airline flights to Anchorage, there's a lot of obstacles that the state and Anchorage have to overcome to get there. But one of the things that's interesting about it is that if you go back through the last 20 years, Condor was able to start its direct flights to Fairbanks because Fairbanks had 20 years worth of marketing and engagement with like charters. And so I think there's something to be said that if Fairbanks can put in that much of a long-term play to get direct flights to it, then it's certainly something that Anchorage can consider. And I may be missing something if Visit Anchorage is already doing this. That'd be something I'd really, really happy to learn from folks if anyone knows on the call. But something like that, like direct marketing in places like Japan or Asia, where you could have the return of some of these travelers.
I believe that Visit Anchorage would have answers to those questions. I think I've heard Julie Sapi talk about it.
Tristan, it's a lot of the work that, and Jason already mentioned this, when Governor Walker took the Opportunity Alaska trip, like that was a lot of the conversation of direct flights between China and Alaska. And I think that Japan's another great opportunity, but yeah, I think that's great. And my couple ideas to support, and this is, I know something that Representative Fields and Senator Begich are talking about, but if we could slow down the traffic on 5th and 6th, and maybe think about the trucking. I already mentioned facade improvement. Mountain View did this incredible program and they created a Mountain View style book. And then now if you drive down Mountain View Drive, it's so vibrant and so colorful. I'd love to see more lights in the wintertime and wayfinding. But yeah, tons of great ideas and love hearing everyone's voice.
Can I comment one more time specifically on I'm not sure how and that was going to be a question I had at the end, was basically where is where do we provide the input, or is this the chance to provide the input on specific projects? So more specifically, the project that I would like to see happen is a historic, walkway, if you will, that kind of starts somewhere and then basically takes down 3rd Avenue. And with the development that we got going down in front of the boardroom, trying to that stairway that basically comes down through H Street, right? That kind of connects to the Coastal Trail Bridge there on 2nd, and then continues down onto the base of Ship Creek, because the railroad is basically working on developing the entire rest of that waterfront area in the pier, right? And so specifically, that access from Third Avenue down to Ship Creek is something that I'm specifically interested in. Obviously, we're part of that development, but with the addition of the edge development, there needs to be a clean access way to get down to that water from the core of downtown. And I think, it's already been identified. How you accomplish that, I'm not really sure, but that's why I'm bringing it up. So I just wanted to add that as a specific project that I would be interested in seeing happen, because I'm not really sure how to accomplish it outside of basically presenting it to you guys, because as far as the community council goes, we've done the CIP for 3 years in a row. And we haven't seen any fruits of that work. You know what I mean? We present what's going to be presented, but like I think Kristen said, those decisions were made a long time ago. So.
Cool. Tristan, anything else? Are you good?
No, I don't have anything other than that. And I guess the one thing is that community councils this year, we're already talking to the other ones as they come up. So actually South Additions is later tonight, but there is going to be a geo bond this year. The governor has indicated that it might be going to deferred maintenance, but I think it's one of those things where this is actually the first year I've been worked as a staffer that we've had a capital budget of any size beyond the bare minimum. And so I would say that's something to bring up with Downtown Community Council, and Chris Constant may have a better idea if like the Muni could take on something like that size, or if it's something that we should put in the CIP. But I'd say it's still worth a shot.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move along. Okay. Christine, I'm going to have you talk about the vision, and then we'll have a short discussion, and then we'll do goals and we'll have a short discussion. So go ahead.
All right. So this process is an opportunity for the community to review and discuss the progress of the plan, and then the progress of the plan combined with any changing demographic or economic trends, coupled with the new incentives that we have planned and recently completed development, and can help us determine if the 2007 vision, goals, recommendations, and implementation strategies in chapter 8, along with the strategies framework and strategies diagram, need to be updated. And we're going to go over those a little bit. Okay. So the vision in the downtown plan was meant to be visionary, yet realistic, strategic, and action oriented. Okay. And that vision says downtown Anchorage is a vibrant northern city center that serves all of Alaska and welcomes the world. Its unparalleled connections to nature and open spaces and its stunning views make downtown like no other urban environment. Residents and visitors are attracted to downtown's innovative urban design, creative use of sustainable technologies, and celebration of Alaska's unique culture. Downtown embraces a diverse concentration of people, employment, shopping, entertainment, government services, cultural facilities and events, public spaces, and housing. Downtown's comfortable and exciting pedestrian environment, inviting open spaces, events for families and children, and mix of cultural and entertainment facilities offers a refined urban living experience in the grandest of settings. So I want you guys to think about it a little bit. And do you think that this vision still works? And I think we're going to do that on the website, right?
We're gonna talk about it right now, I think.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so we have enough time, and I think we have the energetic participants right now. But the question, so just remember, this targeted update of the downtown plan is not intended to overhaul the vision and the goals. But I still think it's important to ask the question of you, does this vision that Christine just articulated, does this still resonate with you, 13 years after it was first created? Does this still resonate? That's a question. Could be a simple yes or no. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jason.
I think I like it all. The second paragraph, I don't feel is relevant anymore. But that's just my opinion.
Okay.
It still works for me, and one of the hardest things to do is to get everybody on the same page with the vision. So,
That's why we're not really cracking the door open.
yeah,
But,
and that's a good idea.
but I guess we want to know like a broad stroke. Is there anything that is just so significantly different 13 years later that it either doesn't connect or we've missed the mark?
Well, and I apologize because moving forward, I think it actually is a good paragraph for a vision. So I
Yep.
guess I was referring to it as if in 2007 to are we at there at this point now? I guess that's what I was referencing. So I would agree with Jim. As a vision, I think it works.
Okay. Yeah, so I think you're making a statement about our progress on the vision since that time, and okay, good. Anybody else want to, okay,
Yeah, this is Dave.
go
I
ahead.
think the vision is awesome. I'm not sure we're getting there as fast as we'd like to, but the vision is great.
Okay. All right, okay, let's move on to the goals, Christine. We're gonna have a similar discussion about the goals.
Yeah. Okay. So there's several different chapters in the plan, and I hope you guys can, take some time to take a look at the plan. Again, look at the trends report and think about this a little bit so that you can comment back to us. So there's overarching goals, and then each section, there's a land use and economic development, transportation, urban design. They each have some goals and recommendations too. But the overarching goals are number one, to create a downtown for all. Number two, provide more housing downtown. Number three, jumpstart development. Number four, improve connectivity. Number five, activate the ground floor environment. And then number six, provide a clear, sensible regulatory framework. And just a little bit of overview from those overarching goals. If you look in chapter 8 at the implementation section, you'll find how the implementation strategies in chapter 8 tie to each one of these overarching goals, as well as what's in the individual chapters. Okay, so I just want to let you guys know that there is that tie and that connection to what was suggested as implementation strategies or action items in this plan.
Okay, so same question. Do these goals still resonate? Should we still be working on these goals? Is there anything missing? Go ahead.
I think under the connectivity section, I would just like to see biking added to that. I don't, the coastal trails become such a fundamental part of Anchorage that, biking, I think, should be added to that. But that's the only thing I have a comment on.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, and I agree. Cycling has definitely increased in Anchorage over the last 13, 15 years. So that's the kind of thing we're thinking about, or we're looking at for updating these goals. Anybody else? Go ahead, Amanda.
Agree with Jason on adding biking in that space. And then I think it might be good to also highlight there like a wayfinding opportunity.
Okay, so wayfinding is in the plan. It's one of the things that hasn't been done. Yeah, so we'll just note that you guys, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question?
Go for it.
What about things like I'm just going to say it, safety? Do you guys feel safe downtown?
I must say, since the police department moved downtown, I mean, it could be COVID too. I mean, but it seems to have, there's not nearly as many people kind of wandering on the streets recently, and maybe that's because they're all in the hotels around Anchorage. But personally, I think safety is a concern. I think it has gotten better in the short term, but I couldn't tell you if that's COVID related or not.
Okay.
All right, so I guess it sounds like we're on track with the goals. So I'm gonna move us along again.
Amanda, if I may, what is your thought on safety?
I think my thought on safety is that it is interconnected to so many other challenges that we are facing in our community. I think that the folks that our team is interacting with are persons that are experiencing substance abuse disorder, mental health crisis, homelessness, and so it's all interconnected to how do we provide a social safety net that supports those services.
Would you say in the past 24 months you've seen an improvement or a decline as far as safety goes?
We have seen concentrated activation in new spaces in the downtown area, and this summer, Pratovich and Fifth and Gamble both where, you know, our team, it was beyond the ability for our team to control both of those spaces. I think winter has been a little bit different. I think what you mentioned, you know, we are seeing less impact as folks have moved into the support housing that's being offered right now. Yeah, but I mean, Fifth and Gamble this summer and the space behind Wells Fargo now continue to be hotspots that we are seeing challenges.
All right, Shanna, I'm going to pass it to you to describe what this is and how in the future this will work to start implementing the plan, I guess, and what you might want people to think about this.
Sure. So this is called the strategy framework, and I kind of think of it as the to-do list. It's not as detailed as Chapter 8, which has a lot of the specific projects, but it takes those goals another step forward. And I think there's two areas to really focus on. I think the middle part where we talk about development projects and opportunities. In yellow, you have the catalytic development sites, and then in that like sort of salmon color is the opportunity sites. And really the concept here is the idea that as a community, we kind of name and identify particular locations within our downtown where we want to focus on redevelopment, activation, making new projects happen. There's talk in the plan about public-private partnerships. There's talk about the issues around feasibility and kind of identifying these sites as key sites to focus investment. I think what will happen is that the planning department will go through and update this based on what has already been done, as well as sites that we didn't imagine would really be opportunity sites, and some of the sites we talked about with the Few Good Blocks area as well. So I think it's helpful for this group to think about what's missing in those lists, in those boxes, but also affirming the idea that naming these sites, making opportunity sites part of the plan is still valuable, right? Like the idea that we should identify the need to come together and invest in certain locations. So that's one part to consider and have feedback on. The other is the sort of bottom part where we talk about the supporting strategies. And again, these lead to the more detailed implementation section. Kind of which programs, which design strategies, which circulation strategies, and which market strategies you think are still really relevant, really to focus on implementation going forward. Anything else I should add, Christine?
Yeah, thank you, Shanna. That was a great overview. In the Trends report, we did report out on the catalytic development sites and the opportunity sites, and what's been developed and what is still partially developed, maybe waiting there to be developed. Just real quickly, number 6, the Intermodal Transportation Center was developed. The McKinley Building was renovated and redeveloped. That's housing now. Number 13, that mixed use parking opportunity site is developed. Of course, we have the new Denina Center, that is number 16. The museum expansion was completed. And let's see, what else? You know, some of it is partially done, like along 6th Avenue, we've got the Willowa now, but that whole kind of block there was proposed in this area. We did a little bit of an analysis on why maybe some of these weren't done, just so you guys know where the Willowa is. That's 4 lots, that's 4 different property owners. That Park Strip housing is Alaska Housing Finance, that's 3 different lots. To do some of these large projects, the point I'm trying to make is you need to consolidate those lots, you need to consolidate that ownership. You might have to do a replat, which is anywhere from $50,000 to more, depending on what all the issues are with a replat. So again, when Shanna was talking about the costs of there's soft costs and hard costs for trying to bring a project on Elizabeth Place, that was 4 separate lots. So they had to replat that piece of property there. So yeah, just take a look at these, look at what the trends report says, let us know if you think they make sense. Just so you know, the roadway projects, there were, I think, 12 recommended. Basically only one of the roadway projects has been done. That was 9th Avenue. The rest of them related to 6th, 5th Avenues, projects on those routes. None of those have been done. So yeah, take a look at the trends report and you know, give us your feedback on, yeah, they need to still stay in. We need to add to them, and there might be other sites that could be opportunity sites too. I can think of 3 right now.
Do you want to say what they are?
The property that the Trust Land Office owns, I think they still own it, by Benihana. And then the parking lot across from the Peterson Tower. Actually, there's 2 parking lots across from Peterson Tower.
So those are examples of brainstorming opportunity sites or catalytic sites as you get there. Okay. So now I want to give you, you know, because Christine is alluding to, this is where if you're a person who likes to participate, which you're doing now, but right, people participate in different ways, right? So what we've created is we've created a website portal for you to be able to access this information, like we do with all projects, right? But this has some other fun activities that you can participate in. And Amanda, this is something you might want to share, or you all might want to share with your groups. But one thing, it asks you to register, just like you would with any other public meeting or thing that you would do. So you can see up here in the right-hand corner that I'm logged in as myself, because as you participate, you know, we want to know who's participating, and it asks just a couple of questions about you. It asks you if you're a property owner. It asks if you are a business owner, so that we can track people's responses based on if they're a property owner or a visitor, that sort of thing. Okay. Okay, it's like a project website, has important meetings on here, important documents and facts. So, you know, if you go, it'll talk to you about what's going on here, but you can also get the trends report here. So Christine keeps talking about the trends report. On this site, you have the trends report, the comp plan, a fact sheet, economic outlook. So everything you want downtown, okay? The Smart Growth America final report that Christine was talking about, these strategy diagrams that we were talking about, all of this information is accessible to you. If there's some reason you were like, I don't want to register, that's stupid, you can still access these documents. Okay, so there's no wall here. You can get to this information whether you choose to participate in the activities on the website or not. Okay, project timeline. Okay, the other thing I want to show you on this website is that the existing condition maps are there. We're not going to go there. How to participate in the meetings, that's also here. The last thing is that there's kind of some different ways you can participate here. And this isn't the most complicated thing in the world, but map your downtown, take a quick poll, and share ideas. As you look at some of these documents, which are linked here again, the comprehensive plan strategy framework, as you think about the conversations we've had tonight, you can participate in this map activity. You can take a quick poll. We're going to be updating these poll questions throughout the next year so that we'll be collecting data. And then there's this other fun function here. This is kind of like a post-it note activity. So as you have ideas like Christine just did about a catalytic site, or Amanda has ideas about facade improvements, this is the place for you to come to add your ideas. And I challenge you to do that. So I just added one for an example. I love public art, creative placemaking, and murals. And so this is the kind of thing I want to see more of downtown. I think it brings people downtown. So I know you've spent your time here participating tonight, and we thank you for that. But these are some other ways to continue to participate. We can share this information out so that more people can participate on their own time, in the comfort of their own beds, with ice cream in their smartphone.
And it's cool to register.
Yeah.
You'll be in the cool group if you register.
And then the other thing is we will be sending project updates via this website. So if you register for the website, you'll be on the email list to receive project updates. Okay. Yeah. All right. What's next? So Christine, I'm going to send you off into what's next. And then we do have kind of like a what's next question in the queue. So after you say what's next, I'll get to that question.
All right. So what's next is today we had a stakeholder meeting earlier in the day that was with quite a few people, Downtown Partnership, AEDC, ACVBA, all the acronyms, and property owners, developers, Downtown Partnership or Downtown Community Council. Sylvia was at that meeting and had a lot of folks, had a lot of good ideas from them. And then now we've heard a lot from you guys tonight. And then tomorrow afternoon or morning, we have a meeting with Muni employees. And basically they're going to see the same presentation. And then we're probably going to hear from them, what the issues are. Like the maintenance guy was invited and AWU was invited. And so we're going to get to hear from them on what they think. And so then what we'll do is we'll put all that information together, and then we will have we'll have another public meeting in March. We want to have one in 6 weeks. And it may be that depending on what you've said to us tonight, if you might be willing to be on a subcommittee or something like that for a certain subject item, we may reach out to you and ask you a little bit about that for more input on some, something that you've said. So anyway, that's the next steps. Here's kind of our proposed timeline right there. And of course, registering for the website, you'll be getting updates And if we put something new up on the website, you'll get an update and it'll say, go take a look at that and give us comments on that. Again, getting back to the 10-year targeted review, it's not blowing up the plan and then rewriting something else. It's looking at the plan. Does what we have right now work? What do we need to add to? And what do we need to tick off? What's done? What have we done?
Okay, so in summary, in March, you're going to see some draft recommendations, I would bet. The planning department is going to get to work and analyze all this data and present some recommendations. That'll be in March. And then just for some first blush feedback from you all. So that's what you should expect in March. And then you'll start seeing the document toward the end of the summer to provide actual feedback and documented comments on that document, okay? So the question, this is a good question. Are you ready, Christine? How will a new mayor impact the final results of this process?
Is this a question for me?
Yeah. What does it mean when the administration changes? And maybe it's more for Carol or Tom. Either person can answer, but how should the community expect this process to move forward as the administrations change?
Well, okay, so as a staffer that has only been employed in the Muni with two administrations, the Sullivan administration and the Berkowitz / Quinn Davidson administrations. The 2007 plan was completed basically when Mayor Begich was in. He was very supportive of downtown. Mayor Sullivan came in, and I don't know if you all know, but his dad promoted Midtown. And so the first Mayor Sullivan was all about Midtown, and kind of that's what happened with Dan Sullivan. He was a little bit more into Midtown. Then Ethan came in, and he was, like I said, we were standing looking out in his office window, and he goes, I can't stand looking at those parking lots. What are we going to do? And so we really were able to start working on and trying to help and do things for downtown. I think as a community, whoever gets elected, this whole community, this downtown community, needs to express to that person that we're on a roll. Planning department's on the roll. The community's on a roll. We're going to get this plan updated and done. We've got significant investment going on, and we need to keep this going to save our downtown.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. So with a change in administration, there's always the chance that policy directives will change. The good news is there's an adopted plan, right? And the vision and goals are already adopted. So just to reiterate what Christine said was, use your voice as the political process changes to express what you think is important. Okay. So I guess in closing, are there any other questions or comments? Carol, you came off mute. Do you want to add or?
Hear me now? No?
Yeah, go ahead. A little bit. I can try to communicate to others what I hear.
Okay, I would say we're heading into election year, and these are asking about downtown and its importance of the candidates is something that should be asked.
Thank you for saying that very strongly. Anyone else want to weigh in?
I'll just weigh in real quick. Speaking of mayoral candidates, the Radicals have been organizing mayoral forums. We've had two candidates come speak to us. First one was in person. Second one was via Zoom, and we have our next one next Tuesday night. So we're trying to meet with all the candidates and see where they're at with our interest in East Downtown and downtown in general.
All right, any other questions or comments about the process?
Just a quick comment to wrap it up. I logged in, I registered for the virtual open house. And this idea that I wanted to present earlier, and it's not my idea, my business partner, David McCarthy, came up with it, but I think it's a great one, is the 3rd Avenue, the hills below the 3rd Avenue to north of 3rd Avenue, those hills that are there that are actually used for sledding and snowboarding, actually converting those hills into real sledding hills or toboggans. When Amanda and I were over in China, off the Great Wall, they had this amazing like toboggan that went down. And you know, there's a way to activate that hill right there for community involvement, to have kids and sledding downtown. Parents are going to bring their kids downtown. They're going to sled summer or winter time in the toboggan, and they're going to go out to get ice cream or a sandwich or food. So I thought that was a great idea. I'll post that on the virtual open house, but I wanted to present that to you guys now, so you can at least put that in your toolbox for ideas.
I'm gonna go and like it.
Okay, Jason, that was the one I was teasing you with, that I wanted to go walk down there with you and Amanda and point out the one above the old freight shed. I think there's a great spot to put in a sledding hill there.
I love it so much. I was part of the group back with Sullivan and the conversations about Ship Creek. And my idea was to have a zip line from that hill down into Ship Creek. And so I
remember that.
strongly support the sledding hill and toboggan.
All right, let's do a walk down there next week.
Love it.
I'm glad you brought up the Ship Creek Framework Plan, Amanda, because it is a great plan. And there are things in there that can be incorporated into the updated downtown plan. And yeah,
that was a really fun, like, it was a couple months working on that stuff, and I'd love to see those ideas come back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just want to thank everyone for participating. This was a really great small group conversation, and I think I'll let the planning department have the final words, but I think we got a lot of good information tonight, and I think it's really great. So thanks for your time, and I'll let you have the last word, Christine.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you taking your time. I miss seeing everybody. I really do. I miss seeing everybody, and it's going to be an awesome plan with your help. I can't just do it by myself. We can't do it by ourselves, Carol and Tom and I. And we appreciate your time, your thoughts. You know, send good thoughts our way, and you know, give us information on the website, and then please look at the reports. And yeah, let's just move forward and get this thing done and get it adopted. And thanks to Holly and Chana.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks,
Good night,
Al.
Thank you, everybody.